I've never been the party type. Every year I'd quietly set a birthday cake on the kitchen counter, light the candles myself, then blow them out in silence. But this year, something shifted. My three sons, Tyler, Josh, and Ethan, called unexpectedly saying they wanted to throw a big party for my 50th birthday. "You deserve a night to remember, Dad," Tyler said on the phone, his voice full of excitement. I paused for a few seconds, a bit surprised, then chuckled softly. "If you boys really mean it, I'm in." It took me nearly an hour to choose a dark blue dress shirt I had bought the week before, a rare luxury after years of frugal living. I got a haircut, polished my shoes. Staring at the mirror, I told myself, maybe things are finally turning around. Since the divorce from Laura 8 years ago, I'd stopped expecting anything from family. But this time, it felt like they were trying to reconnect. The party was held at an upscale restaurant downtown in Raleigh. A private room was decorated with balloons, candles, and a large sign that read, "Happy 50th birthday, Gary." I walked in to applause and shouts of my name. In the room were about 30 people. Former coworkers, a few distant cousins, and of course, the three sons I thought I had lost touch with forever. Laura was there too. When I saw her sitting in the corner with a glass of red wine and a half smile, a flicker of unease crossed my mind. But I reassured myself. Maybe the boys just wanted both parents present for this special day. The first hour of the party was genuinely pleasant. Cold beer, grilled ribs, my favorite, and laughter echoing as friends reminisced about the old days. Tyler sat next to me at one point and whispered, "We've got something special for you coming up." I nodded, warmth rising in my chest, thinking maybe the distance was finally dissolving. Around 8 p.m., the lights dimmed. Josh stood, gently tapped his glass with a spoon, and said, "Thanks everyone for coming. It's time for the surprise we've been working on for months." A white screen was pulled down, the projector flickered on. I expected childhood photos, maybe some lighthearted home videos. But the title flashed in bright red, "Gary Whitman, A Life of Failure." Laughter erupted. I turned, confused. Then Laura's voice rang out, not from the room but from the video, cold, flat, like a narrator in a crime documentary. Gary Whitman, failed husband, unreliable father, never good enough. The screen showed images I didn't know still existed. A junk car I bought that broke down in the middle of the road, a photo of me passed out on my work chair, surrounded by unfinished files, a clip from a camping trip years ago when it rained nonstop and our tent blew away. The chuckles turned into awkward murmurs. I sat frozen. My body tense as Laura described our dull intimacy and long nights of loneliness, with a husband physically present but emotionally gone. Every word hit like a blade, sharp, precise, unforgettable. The finale, my three sons standing in front of a camera saying, "We're changing our last names to our mothers, Reeves. We don't want the name of a man who was never there when it mattered." The room fell silent. Some looked down. Others avoided eye contact. I didn't speak. I stood, adjusted my collar, looked each of my sons in the eye, and quietly said, "Thank you for coming." I turned and walked out of the room I once thought might bring our family back together, but it was all a performance. Driving home in silence, I passed familiar streets that hadn't changed in years, while my heart felt like it was wandering in a life I no longer recognized. Once I shut the apartment door behind me, the world outside faded completely. I didn't turn on the lights. The dim glow from the street lamp through the curtains was enough for me to sit, take off my shoes, and silently confront the humiliation I had just endured. Laura's voice echoed in my mind, "You never made me feel like a woman." Then Tyler's cold statement, "We don't want the name of a man who doesn't deserve to be a father." Every word cut deep, not with blood, but with truth. Maybe it was time I faced reality, not the twisted story they told in that cheap video, but the truth of who I was, Gary Whitman, a man who once tried to hold his family together with everything he had. Laura and I married when I was 26, she was 22. When Tyler was born, I missed the delivery because I was working a night shift at the accounting firm. I still remember Laura's disappointed eyes in that hospital room while I was on the phone sorting insurance coverage for the hospital bill. I wasn't there for my firstborn's first cry, but I paid every dollar of the hospital stay so Laura didn't have to worry about a thing. Then came Josh, then Ethan. 3 boys. 3 phases of my life spent working myself to the bone so none of them ever went without. I couldn't buy them fancy bikes, but they never missed a day of school. I didn't take them on beach vacations, but there was always milk in the fridge and new school supplies in their backpacks. Laura? She smiled more than I did, knew how to say it's okay when the kids wanted toys. I was the strict one. No, we can't afford it. Over time, I became the distant figure with the credit card, not the comforting embrace. The divorce came one October morning, before the sun even rose. Laura left a note on the kitchen table. I'm tired. I need to live, not just exist. She left with the boys and a CrossFit trainer from the gym membership I had paid for. How fitting. The court proceedings were quick. She got custody. I didn't fight. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew dragging it out would hurt the boys more. I thought I was protecting them by taking the pain. Who knew that very act would make them believe I had given up? For the next 8 years, I tried to stay connected. I sent birthday gifts, sat in the back row at graduations. I called, no one picked up. I texted, saw read. Ethan once replied to thank an anonymous donor for a scholarship. I never told him it was me. I convinced myself they're young, they don't understand yet. But sitting in that room, watching them publicly humiliate me destroyed every excuse I ever made. I wasn't perfect. I worked too much. I avoided fights by staying silent. I never asked, "Are you happy?" because I thought paying the bills was enough. But I never abandoned anyone, never turned away when someone needed me. So why did they choose that moment to erase whatever was left of us? I opened my phone, scrolled through bank records. Every month, $900 for Tyler to help raise his kid, $1,200 for Josh to start his auto shop, $6,500 for Ethan's last semester. None of them ever asked if I had enough for myself. They just asked, and I gave. I sat up straighter, chest hollow. The hurt gave way to something sharper. Awareness. I had let them treat me like I didn't matter. But now, something was shifting. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, familiar faces flashed back. Tyler's smug grin, Josh leaning back like he owned the room, Ethan avoiding my eyes like I had betrayed him, and Laura, sitting there like the director of a tragic comedy, her voice through the speaker cutting like glass, yet utterly void of remorse. The next morning, my phone buzzed endlessly. 6 missed calls from Tyler, 3 texts from Josh, 1 call from Laura, then Ethan. None of them asked if I was okay, just short demands. Need your signature to complete the process. Don't drag this out, Dad. Just silent. Don't complicate things. By noon, Erica, Tyler's wife, called. I almost never spoke to her, but her unusually gentle tone made me pick up. Hi, Uncle Gary. I just wanted to check if you were okay after the party. For a moment, I thought someone truly cared. But a few lines later, her real reason surfaced. We're just hoping you'll help so the name change paperwork goes smoothly. Tyler said you haven't signed yet. I cut her off, my voice calm. You really think calling me yourself is more effective than Tyler talking to his own father? Erica paused. I just want to help everyone reconcile, really. I gave a faint smile, said nothing, and hung up. That afternoon, I received an email from a legal representative. The attached document was a consent form for the name change of the 3 boys I once believed would carry my name forward. Below were the signatures of Tyler, Josh, and Ethan. Only mine was missing to make it official. A text from Josh followed immediately. Do you seriously think we're going too far? It's just a way to close this chapter. Don't make yourself the burden. A burden? I stayed up nights helping Tyler cover rent when he lost his contract. I drove through the night to the hospital when Josh crashed his car after drinking, cleaning up the mess so it wouldn't end up on his record. I quietly paid most of Ethan's tuition when Laura suddenly had financial issues, so he wouldn't feel ashamed. They'd forgot it all. They didn't just erase me. They wanted me to sign the erasure myself. I didn't respond, not because I had nothing to say, but because there was no point explaining. They had written their version of the story, I still had mine. That evening, Laura called. "Gary, how long are you going to drag this out?" she asked, her tone impatient like she was scolding a child who hadn't done their homework. "I haven't decided," I replied flatly. "You're making things harder for all three of them. You don't see what they did to me? I see a father who can't accept the truth. No? You see a man who's gotten too used to being disrespected." I paused. "About the signature? Tell them I'll think about it, but don't send anyone else trying to bargain with pity." I hung up. No yelling, no trembling hands, just ended the call. The texts kept coming for the next 2 days. Guilt-tripping, emotional pressure, even subtle threats that I was just making things harder for myself. Ethan, the gentlest of them all, sent a cold message. "If you don't sign, this will only get worse. Do the right thing, at least once." At least once? I've been doing the right thing nearly my whole life, it's just no one cared to notice. On the third night after the party, I sat wide awake at my desk, staring at the printed documents from the lawyer's email. The consent form lay there, blank, where my signature should go. The pen sat next to it. I could sign right now, send it back, and be done with it. But if I did, I'd be agreeing with the story they told, that I was such a failure my own children didn't want to carry my name. I put the form back into the drawer, locked it, turned off the lights, got into bed. I closed my eyes without dragging guilt in with me. I spent all Sunday morning organizing the filing cabinet in my study. Not because it was messy, but because I needed to remember exactly what I had done for these sons who were so quick to burn every trace of me in exchange for a new name on their IDs. Bottom right drawer. That's where I always kept the important documents. A thick folder, neatly stapled, labeled in handwriting, "Private Financial Support." I'd never shown it to anyone. Never used it to keep score. I used to think love didn't need receipts. The first page was a summary of monthly bank transfers from the past 3 years, $1,150 a month into Tyler and Erica's joint account. I added a note in pen, "Mortgage support, Northwood Hills." They chose a 3-story house with a backyard twice their income level, but when the bank asked for a co-signer, Tyler called me at 11 p.m., voice shaking. "Dad, if no one backs us, we might lose the house." I didn't ask questions, I just signed and transferred money like clockwork. Over 3 years, I'd sent more than $41,000 to keep a roof over my eldest son's family. Next section, a stack of emergency transfers, all to Josh's personal account. Totaled close to $9,300, mostly for things he urgently needed to fix, private matters. I assumed it was business expenses or helping a friend, but last year an email accidentally forwarded to me revealed the truth. Josh had sunk into online sports betting. I didn't say a word, just texted back, "Last time, save yourself." He never replied. As for Ethan, my youngest, I kept a separate folder. It included tuition receipts from the community college he attended, a copy of his apartment lease near campus, and all the payments I'd made for everything from electric bills to textbooks. Laura had promised to support him after the divorce, but 2 semesters in, he called me, stressed and ashamed. "Mom says money's tight. Can I ask for a deferment on tuition?" I said, "Don't worry, I'll handle it." From that point on, I sent more than $24,000 across 2 years, not counting the hundreds for his day-to-day needs. I looked at the numbers, then looked at myself in the mirror, a man they had just tossed aside like a historical mistake. No one knew what I had done. No one asked. I used to believe family was automatic. I was wrong. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Email from Ethan. Subject line, "Dad, I want to talk." I opened it. Just 2 short lines. "I've been thinking, can we meet one-on-one? No mom, no brothers." I didn't reply, not out of anger, I just needed time to think. That afternoon, Tyler called. First time since the party. I picked up. He got straight to the point. "Dad, are you seriously planning to ignore the paperwork forever?" "I wouldn't call it ignoring," I said. "I need you to be clear. Erica and the house are on the line. You're blowing everything up. You've lived in that house for 3 years thanks to who? What are you talking about?" I'm saying those mortgage payments, those wide backyards and the three-car garage, you didn't cover all that alone. Tyler went silent for a few seconds, then his voice sharpened. So now you're keeping score? No. I'm reminding you. Before you erase me from your life, at least remember who helped you build parts of it. I hung up before he could respond, not because I wanted to win, but because I didn't want to hear another word from someone who once called me dead weight. That evening, I pulled out every copy of the documents, sorted them by name. I wanted each of them to see, down to the dollar, what they had taken from the failed father. Not to demand repayment, but to bring it all to a close the right way. I don't know yet who I'll give these folders to or when, but one thing is clear: if they've chosen to toss out the name Whitman, then I won't let them keep the best parts of me as if it's theirs by default. I sat in my car for almost 10 minutes before walking into the restaurant. The rear-view mirror reflected a graying man with sunken eyes from lack of sleep, a wrinkled shirt, and a loose collar like he'd just rolled out of a restless night. I made myself look that way on purpose. A broken-down version, easy to pity. A sorry father. That's the role they were expecting. Tyler picked the Italian place in the North Side Shopping Center. Fancy, overpriced, and completely out of place for someone who'd just been cast out by his own family. Still, I walked in, nodded at the host, and went straight to the table where all four of them were already seated. Tyler glued to his phone, Erica close by, Josh laughing with Laura about something, and Ethan staring at the floor, briefly meeting my eyes before looking away. Dad, you actually came. Josh raised his eyebrows in mock surprise. We thought you changed your mind. I almost did, I replied, pulling out a chair, but on second thought, maybe we should talk one last time. They looked at me like I'd crawled out of a grave, and I didn't bother correcting the image. I dabbed my eyes with a napkin, exhaled slowly like I was holding back emotion. Tyler cleared his throat. Dad, we're not trying to be harsh. We just want you to sign. It'll make everything easier for everyone. Laura nodded, chiming in, nobody wants to hurt anyone. It's just a necessary decision. Josh sipped his wine, then went blunt. You've been living in isolation for years. This isn't punishment, it's liberation. Ethan said nothing, but I caught him looking at me, not coldly, but hesitantly. I looked down, voice raspy. Maybe you're right. Maybe I didn't live up to my responsibilities. I just want to understand why. Why you had to do it, publicly, in front of friends, coworkers, family. Laura shrugged, setting her glass down. If we'd told you in private, you would have talked your way around it. But if your own kids say it in public, you can't deny it anymore. Erica chimed in, her sweet voice barely masking her disdain. We don't hate you. We just think it's time to move on. Tyler pushed a folder toward me. We already have the paperwork ready. Just sign it, no more debate. I picked it up, skimmed through. Everything was legal, only my signature was missing. I pulled a pen from my shirt pocket and signed slowly, like someone signing their own sentencing. Thanks, Dad, Ethan said softly, his voice nearly drowned out by the clinking of cutlery and soft background music. I looked up, forced a tired smile. If that makes you feel better. Laura exhaled, visibly relieved. Josh winked at Tyler. Erica poured more wine. No one asked if I wanted to order anything. No one noticed how tight my fists were clenched under the table. After a pause, Josh looked around and chuckled. So is this the celebration part? Name change successful? Freedom for everyone? Laura laughed. Gary must feel lighter too. Tyler looked at me, half serious. Hope you're not holding any grudges now, Dad. Let the past go. I nodded, still staring at my lap. Yeah. Let it go. I grabbed a napkin, pretending to wipe a tear. They thought I was breaking. But the truth, I was counting down. When I walked out of that restaurant, I didn't look back. I didn't want to see their fake sympathy, the empty toasts, or the hollow laughter of people who once called me their foundation. I walked away looking like a defeated man. But in reality, I had just completed phase 1 of a plan none of them saw coming. Back home, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. In the to-do list, I typed a single line. Phase 2 starts tomorrow. They thought the story ended with my signature. But they forgot, those who stay calm in public humiliation often have more than one card left to play. The moment the door clicked shut behind me, I hung up my coat, dropped my pen on the desk, and opened the laptop. I wasn't angry. I wasn't heartbroken. What remained was something colder, sharper. They'd taken my trust, my dignity, and now expected me to agree to vanish from my own life. If that's what they wanted, I'd reclaim the only things I still controlled, my money and my silence. I logged into my bank account and scrolled to scheduled transfers. First in line, $1,150 to Tyler Whitman on the 3rd of every month. I hit cancel, then confirm. Took less than 10 seconds. Felt like removing a cinder block from my chest. Next was Ethan's tuition. I opened the email from his school's finance office. The last line thanked me for 3 consecutive semesters of prompt payment. I clicked Cancel Autopay, then sent a short message. Please stop sending tuition invoices to my address. I am no longer the financial guarantor. I opened my contacts and searched for Josh. His name still had a heart emoji next to it, something I'd added long ago to quickly find him when he needed emergency cash. I hovered for a moment, then hit block contact. No hesitation. Finally, I opened a folder labeled Josh Confidential. Inside were screenshots of late-night pleas, Venmo transfers labeled Last Bailout, and a detailed summary of his online betting account, showing losses over $8,000. I created a new email address, attached everything, and wrote the subject line. What your fiancé doesn't know. Recipient, malia.preston93@gmail.com. I hit send, then shut my laptop. The wheels had begun to turn. 3 days later, the fallout came faster than I expected. On Wednesday morning, the landline rang off the hook. Before I could answer, voicemail picked up a scream. What the hell did you do? Erica just got a notice from the bank. They're threatening to foreclose because we missed this month's payment. Text from Tyler followed, almost 10, in a row, most of them scathing. He didn't ask why, just accused. You're ruining my life. How could you be so selfish? I didn't reply. I sent him a screenshot of every transfer I made over 36 months, complete with dates and amounts. At the bottom, I wrote one line. This isn't sabotage. It's the end of sponsorship. That afternoon, Ethan texted. Unlike Tyler, he didn't lash out. Just 3 words. What about this semester? I didn't answer. I had already paid enough for him to finish this term. If he wanted more, he'd need to learn the cost of gratitude. That night, Josh called. No greeting, just near shouting. Malia left. She said you sent her something. Are you out of your mind? You trying to destroy me now? I kept my voice even. What I sent was the truth. You destroyed your relationship yourself. Josh rambled on, calling me a pathetic old man, so lonely you have to ruin your kids' lives. I ended the call. Every word only confirmed what I already knew. They never saw me as a person, just a wallet, a name on a bank record, a shield they could hide behind whenever they screwed up. That night, I didn't sleep. Not out of regret, but because my mind was mapping out the next step. They didn't know this was just the appetizer. The main course hadn't been served yet. I opened the wall calendar and circled Saturday. A family meeting was being planned, but unlike before, I would be the one speaking first. No tears, no apologies, only facts. And receipts. On Thursday afternoon, I was having coffee on the balcony when the phone buzzed. A message came in from an unknown number, but the tone was so familiar, it didn't need a name. You bastard, you ruined my life. Malia blocked me. I've got nothing left. You happy now? No signature, but the grammar errors, shouting in all caps, and punctuation made it obvious. It was Josh, a few drinks in and burning in his own mess. The next message came just before midnight. I wish you were dead so I wouldn't have to carry the shame of the Whitman name. I turned the ringer off but saved every message. They might come in handy later. The next morning, I received an email from HR. The subject line was strange. Anonymous report on mental health concerns. I opened the attachment. It was a messy, rambling paragraph filled with grammar mistakes, claiming I was mentally unstable after a prolonged divorce, displaying retaliatory behavior, and possibly creating a hazardous work environment without oversight. The sender? Ethan. His name showed up at the bottom, likely an accident from a misclick in the feedback form. I sat still for a while, staring at the screen, then let out a long breath. My youngest, the one who used to react the least, apparently had no issue using me as a scapegoat to protect his own reputation. I called Marcus, my supervisor for over 10 years. He picked up immediately. Gary, I had to send the email for protocol, but honestly, I knew something was off just reading it. I know who sent it. I figured, Marcus said with a quiet chuckle. Whatever's going on at home, I won't interfere, but if you need me to sign anything confirming you're still sharp and sane, just send it my way. Thanks, Marcus. I might take you up on that. By noon, messages started rolling in from extended family, then another, then an old college friend, all saying the same thing. Heard you've been going through something since your birthday? Laura said you're not doing well. Want me to stop by and check in? Bernice. I didn't even need to read past the first line to know it was her doing. She'd always been good at portraying the concerned ex-wife worried about her troubled former husband. When you don't defend yourself, people fill in the blanks. And she was a master at controlling the narrative. But not this time. That evening, I sent a group message to Tyler, Josh, Ethan, Bernice, Erica, and Malia. Just one sentence. Saturday noon at my place. Family meeting, no guests allowed. I'll provide the food. Not even 5 minutes passed before the responses poured in. Tyler, what are you trying to pull now? Laura, nobody wants to hurt you. Don't do anything drastic. Josh, I'm not coming just to get lectured. Ethan replied with just one line. I'll be there. I didn't answer anyone. No need to explain or plead. They were used to me caving. They had no idea this time would be different. On Friday, I cleaned the house, not to impress anyone, but because I needed my mind to be as clear as the space I was preparing for the meeting. I ordered food from the Chinese place they all liked, specific dishes for each of them. Beef and broccoli for Tyler, seafood fried rice for Josh, crispy wontons for Ethan, hot and sour soup for Bernice. Everything perfect. The only thing I didn't prepare was forgiveness. That night, I pulled out 4 folders, each labeled with a name. I placed them on the table like formal indictments. Then, I reopened the video from my birthday, the 16-minute humiliation reel they thought would break me. I had requested a copy from a bartender under the pretense of wanting it for memories. As the video played from the beginning, I didn't feel anger anymore. I saw every glance, every smirk, every cruel joke that had pushed me to the edge. The family meeting was less than 24 hours away. They thought they were coming for lunch, small talk, and another round of treating me like an outdated joke. But they forgot something. The one who stays quiet the longest is often the one who prepares the most for his return. On Saturday at 11:43 a.m., Laura arrived first, polished as always, straightened hair, neutral dress, and that familiar look she used whenever she feigned concern. I opened the door, nodded, said nothing. She glanced around the living room and gave a faint smile. You haven't changed the place. I replied flatly, haven't had a reason to. 10 minutes later, all 3 sons walked in. Tyler led the way, phone in hand, Erica close behind. Josh looked like he hadn't slept. Ethan was thinner, his eyes sunken, but he still walked on his own. They froze for a second when they saw how calm I was. Only the smell of hot food from the kitchen, clean plates laid out, and chilled sodas neatly arranged on the table. Have a seat, I said evenly. I got your favorite dishes. The room was stiff, awkwardly cold. They sat down, pretending this was a normal lunch. For 15 minutes, there was only chewing, clinking forks, and small talk about work, weather, and gas prices. When everyone was nearly done with their meal, I stood up, walked over to the TV stand, and plugged the HDMI cable into my laptop. Without a word, I hit play. The screen lit up with the title that once burned through my pride, Gary Whitman, A Life of Failure. Laura's voice began, calm and cold, narrating like it was a mockumentary. I didn't fast forward, didn't pause, didn't interrupt. I just sat across from them, silently watching every reaction. Tyler froze, his eyes avoiding the screen. Erica lowered her head, lips pressed tightly together. Josh tried to smirk but gripped the edge of his chair. Ethan stayed still, his face drained of color as he stared at the screen. At the end, their recorded declaration rang out, the three brothers stating they didn't want to carry the last name of such a father. Then the screen went black. I stood, turned on the lights. "Thank you," I said slowly. "Now it's my turn." I walked into the bedroom and returned with 4 folders, placing one in front of each of them. Each had a name written clearly on the cover, carefully bound. No one reached for theirs. So I opened them myself, one by one. "Tyler," I pointed at a printed statement stamped by the bank. "This contains every transfer I've made into your and Erica's account over the past 3 years, a total of $41,500. I'm not asking for it back, but there won't be another dollar." Erica covered her mouth. Tyler flushed red, unable to speak. "Josh," I slid over the second folder. "These are the amounts I covered to bail you out of gambling debt, late-night pleading texts, your DraftKings statements. I printed them all. And here's confirmation that I sent them to Malia. She deserves to know." Josh shot to his feet, face pale. "You've lost your mind." I didn't respond. I simply pushed the third folder toward Ethan. "This has every tuition payment and living expense I covered after your mom said she couldn't afford it anymore. Total, $24,800. I've paid for this semester, but that's the last one." Ethan said nothing. He just stared down at the folder, unmoving. I turned to Laura, and last. I opened the fourth folder, a collection of photos of you and Brian, your personal trainer, taken 6 months before we divorced, date, time, and location included. I never used them in court because I didn't want our kids seeing their mother like that. Laura jumped to her feet, her face drained. "You were spying on me?" "I didn't need to. He posted them himself. I just saved them." The room fell into a heavy silence. Everyone sat frozen. I walked to the side table and pulled out one last piece of paper. "This is my legal name change form. I've signed it. From now on, I go by my mother's maiden name, Gary Emerson. If you don't want my name, then I no longer need it either. We can restart from opposite sides. As strangers." I looked at each of them. No one dared speak. "I'm not kicking you out," I said, walking to the door. "The door's always open, but only to those who understand respect." I grabbed my coat, turned away. "I've got plans. If you're hungry, help yourselves to what's left." Then I walked out, leaving behind the faces of those who thought that living room would be the place to humiliate a father they no longer valued. I drove out of the neighborhood, my hands trembling slightly, not from anger or pain, but because I'd just shaken off a weight that had crushed me for years. The noon sunlight poured through the windshield, forcing me to squint, but my mind had never been clearer. I headed to a small cafe near the woods on the western edge of town, Audrey's favorite weekend spot. We'd met through a hiking group for people over 40. It started with some casual chat about knots and gear, then slowly turned into deeper conversations. Audrey had gone through a bitter divorce, had 2 grown daughters, and like me, knew what it felt like to become an outsider in your own family. When I walked in, she was already at our usual corner table, holding a slim book and a cup of chamomile tea. Her eyes met mine, gently, no rush, no judgment. She didn't ask, "So what happened?" She simply said, "You look different today." I smiled, pulled out the chair across from her. "I just closed an old door. It was rusty for a long time, but now it's locked for good." She tilted her head, didn't push for more. We talked about a new trail in the state park, a pair of hiking boots she was considering, and even her dream of one day seeing penguins in person. Later, while she went to refill her tea, I reached into my bag and pulled out a real estate contract, signed and filed 3 days earlier. The sale of the Asheville house, the ancestral home Tyler, Josh, and Ethan assumed they'd inherit. In their minds, I was a bottomless provider. But now, they'd have to learn how to walk without the shadow of old man Gary covering their missteps. I used the money to fund a long-denied dream, a cross-country SUV trip to Yellowstone. I'd always wanted to go, but Laura hated camping and the kids couldn't look away from their phones. Now I didn't have to wait on anyone. I'd already booked the park pass, reserved a tent site, and signed up for a guided 3-day hike. I even bought a used camera, not for social media, but to capture the moments I was truly living, not just surviving, for someone else. That evening, I returned home, went straight to the bedroom, and opened the bottom drawer where I'd stored old family photos. I pulled out one of the boys riding bikes on the backyard lawn, another of Ethan hugging the shelter dog I'd rescued. I studied each tiny face, and for a second a sharp ache stirred inside. But then I put the photos back, closed the drawer, and locked it with the small key I'd kept since Laura left. I didn't throw them out. I didn't burn them. Just returned them to rest, like memories finally ready to sleep. The next morning, I woke at 6 a.m. No message alerts, no bank emails about late payments, just birdsong outside the window, coffee brewing in the kitchen, and soft sunlight cutting through the curtains. I sat down at the table, took out a blank sheet of paper, and wrote at the top, things I want to do before turning 50, you know? First line, camp alone by Mirror Lake in Yellowstone, 3 nights. Next, call Ethan, not to teach, just to listen, if he really has something worth saying. I wasn't hoping for regret. I didn't need apologies. What I needed now was space, clarity, and the freedom to live without being chained to anyone else's twisted expectations. I had once been a father, a husband, a walking ATM, a burden bearer. But starting today, I was just a man, driving across states, traveling light, with self-respect I had stitched back together myself. And the best part? I no longer felt alone. After all the hurt, Gary Emerson learned to let go of others' expectations to rediscover himself. Once seen as a burden, he became the man who dared to cut off toxic ties and rebuild his life with clarity and self-worth. No longer a punching bag or a wallet, he now lives for himself, free, calm, and unapologetically true. What do you think about Gary's decision? Was he too harsh, or was it the only way to wake up those who took him for granted? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories from real-life families.